Hello, I'm making this video to add to the information that's already on YouTube about some of the machines that use the uh, RCA SnapLoad cartridge tape recording system back from the late 50s, early 60s. There's information out there on what they called their standalone machines, the CP1 and the SCP-2, the stereo version of the standalone machines, as well as the lighter plastic case portables, the stereo version of which I think was called the 3YD11. Why they changed the nomenclature, I don't know, but they did. This video is about a different animal. This is something called the SCP-3, and it's likely that you may never see one of these aside from YouTube. This is kind of the white buffalo or the unicorn of the SnapLoad cartridge machines. According to an article in Billboard from about 1962, RCA had already seen the handwriting on the wall after this technology had been on the market only about 3 or 4 years. Coming around the corner was going to be the Philips cassette that used 1/8 inch tape. This used 1/4 inch, and it was much lighter and much higher fidelity because of the newer head technology. So they decided that they weren't going to continue to manufacture this thing in large quantities. And this machine, they'd already built a number of them. They had some warehoused. And they decided, instead of putting them out into retail stores, consumers' hands, because both its expense and complexity and by the way, the weight, they would sell these off maybe in wholesale lots to industrial or institutional users, schools, businesses, corporations, that kind of thing. So I don't think any of these ever made it out into the retail store outlets. I've only seen one in its entirety before, and I picked that up on YouTube some years back. It was in non-restorable condition. It was pretty bad off. But over time, I acquired this case as new old stock about 12 years ago and put it on the shelf. I acquired a new old stock transport a year or two after that, and then used the amplifier from the complete unit that I bought that was restorable. The transport and the case on that other one were pretty much junk, but the amplifier was restorable. I recapped that because all of the wax-coated paper capacitors are being close to 60 years old, or all out of spec. They either become leaky or change values quite a bit. So having done that, this machine is therefore kind of a strange animal in that it never saw use anywhere. It's complete. It operates as intended, but it has no serial number. A couple things that are interesting and different about this machine. First of all, according to Billboard, the original CP1, the monaural standalone, was intended to sell for $199. The SCP-2, the standalone stereo machine, sold for $299. This machine was intended to sell for $349. By the time you got up into those price ranges, the corrected for inflation, that's well over $1,000 by today's money, and that puts you into a category that says you have to be a pretty high-performing audio file type machine, or have a unique capability for those kind of price ranges. So this machine is different than the others in that the others are all mechanically actuated transports. You push buttons, it actuates levers, or you turn knobs, which actuates levers. The CP1 and the SCP-2 use idler wheels to drive them. The portables, like the 3YD11, that used belts. Regardless, these machines are all pushing close to 60 years old. And so if you find them and they've been sitting in somebody's attic or basement for 50 years, both the belts and the idler wheels are going to be junk. In the case of the CP1 and SCP-2, I typically have the idler wheels rebuilt from scratch, and they sound just like new after that's done. I haven't done that to this one yet, but it's coming around the corner soon. The other thing that's interesting about the difference between these machines is this one uses electrically actuated transport mechanism, which means that solenoids and motors drive everything into position, because I will take the lid off of this guy. This machine is bidirectional. It's got 3 heads. The erase head sits in the center, and then it's got a separate record playback for each direction. And it's got 2 capstans and 2 capstan pinch rollers. So there's a lot that changes. Underneath this mechanism down in the transport is a multi-deck rotary switch that's operated by a AC motor, which based on what you select here is going to change the head configurations, switch what tracks are being listened to through the amplifier or recorded on, and also which pinch rollers are engaged and what direction the tape transport is operating. So you literally can listen to all 4 tracks on this machine without pulling the tape off or turning it over. This machine was interesting in that if you take a look at some of the old videos that RCA made, they were of course film at the time, but if you take a look at the old films they made to market these and to announce them, they were using this transport. The stereophonic, orthophonic, high fidelity systems that they showed had standalone speaker cabinets with this embedded transport, and until I saw these components available and picked them up one at a time, I had never seen a machine built using this transport. Another thing that is different about this machine is instead of using the typical dual neon record playback indicators, or rather record amplitude volume indicators, this uses a magic eye for the recording volume for both channels. I will move the camera a little bit. Now you can see a little bit better the window that's right here. Currently it shows the transport is in the off position. When I hit select, it's going to operate the motor underneath here, which is going to activate the drive motor, put the appropriate idler wheels into motion, engage the appropriate pinch roller and capstan, and connect the right tracks to the amplifier, depending on whether you're in the stereo mode or what they call the monaural mode. The SCP-2 has a stereo and channel 1, channel 2, track 1, track 2 type selector. This simply puts you in mono, and then when you're in mono, this will advance from A1 to B1 to A2 to B2. So you have 4 discrete tracks and 4 discrete passes that it will make. We're now playing A1. Actually, we're playing side A because I'm on the stereo configuration right now. If you want to fast forward or reverse in either direction, you hit the hold switch, press the appropriate fast forward. It halts the transport while you're doing this. Resume starts it back up again. Balance control, the same as the SCP-2, and it's got a dual channel output amplifier in here that drives an external speaker if you want stereo. It has the left channel speakers built in, just like the SCP-2 did. An interesting transport by any measure. These machines are little time capsules in effect. Not only does the tape library that RCA offered, it's popularized based on what RCA had in its catalog at the time of release of these machines back in the late 50s. But if you come across these machines, usually they're in pretty bad shape. That's because they weighed a lot, and to carry them around, they laughingly referred to them as portable, but to carry them around, the SCP-1 weighed close to 30 pounds, the SCP-2 weighs close to 45 pounds, this machine probably weighs almost 55 pounds. Very heavy transport, same with the amplifier and the speakers and componentry in it, so it is something that is hardly portable. The other thing about these machines that was quite a bit different at the time, or that rather that people will run into, is that in the late 50s, during the time of popularity of these machines, everybody smoked. So finding one of these machines that wasn't exposed to a heavily smoky environment is also a rarity, and they usually require an awful lot of cleaning and so forth. This machine has been exposed to neither of the things that I just mentioned before. I hit select again. The wheel rotates. We're now on the B side. The cassette is going in the opposite direction, and it's now playing in stereo what was on the B side of the tape. In all of the other machines, the tape stops here, which are intended to stop the machine when the tape reaches end of tape. In this machine, these are not mechanical cams or levers as they are in the other machines. These actuate micro switches. So if I was to hit this, this will turn the machine off. It says, or it thinks, we're at the end of tape, and we've played both the A side and the B side in stereo. So it's done its work. If you want to get it started again, you hit select, and it's going to be playing the A side again now. Something else, as I said before, if I switch this over to monaural, it's going to switch to B1, but now instead of shutting off, it's going to go to track A2, and finally track B2 before it finally shuts itself off. So these are very interesting machines in terms of the history on them, I think. Like I said, I wanted to add this to the information that's out there on the snap load cartridge players.